Carlos Ramsey's with the Enhancing Mind. Self-mastery, like everything else, is just practice, adjustments, and consistency. Despite how simple the idea may be, executing on it, as we all know, is a completely different animal. But why is that? Why is becoming the person you daydream of becoming so difficult to develop? As you know, there are multidimensional factors at play here, and if you read my book, Your Enhancer and Destroyer, you can get a pretty good idea of the components required to bring your best you to fruition. The main purpose of the book is to help you build a strategy, a game plan, centered around the goal of developing the best version of yourself. But nothing in the book, nothing in your life, no efforts or plan can ever take you to whatever finish line you are trying to get to without data. And how do we develop data? And how can we use data to stay strong in our attempt to master ourselves? One of the best tools that you can have as a foundation to self mastery is to develop a result oriented mind. And why is that important? It's important because the mind is weird. Not sure if you noticed. Our brains can skew information, warp reality, and make us perceive things differently than how they actually are. Not always, but too often for comfort. And what can this lead to? It can lead to a skewed or unreliable gauge of development or progress. In other words, our minds can make us think that we are doing better than we are when we're not, or make us think that we're not doing enough when we're actually right on target. So, how do we develop a results oriented mind to help propel us forward and stay on track? Well, there's two ways, two recommendations that I would make. Those recommendations being develop milestones, that's the data portion, and reset the dopamine. That's the call to action portion. To reset the dopamine, get the words I'm gonna out of your vocabulary. Never say those words again. In order to go from a non performer to a performer, the way you speak to yourself and describe your world and your role in it has to change. That means changing the way you talk, because changing the way you talk changes the way you think, and changing the way you think changes the way you talk. It's a cycle. But the shift's got to start somewhere. So start there. So instead of saying I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, you will now begin to say I did, or I'm doing, I am. When you share an I'm gonna with someone, and that someone pats you on the back and cheers you on for your super cool thought, and you lean back and daydream about achieving that goal without having done a damn thing yet, it feels good, doesn't it? It feels good when you do that. You know why it feels good? Dopamine. And then you end up not doing anything about it. So from now on, if someone asks what you've been up to, tell them what you've actually been up to. And if your answer to that question embarrasses you to even share because you haven't done anything, switch up what you were doing then. Switch up what you do, not what you say. So the next time someone asks what you've been up to, you'll be proud of your answer. Start getting your dopamine that way instead. Want to know how I spot someone that doesn't have goals? I ask them what they've been up to. And if they start answering me with I'm gonna, which happens all the time, by the way, that tells me that what they have actually been up to is nothing. And guess what? You come up to someone like me with the I'm gonnas, guess what I'm gonna tell you when you're done talking? I'm gonna say, yeah, right. You're not gonna do any of that. I don't care if we just met. I don't care if it's a little rude. That is always my answer to someone telling me the I'm gonnas. Why? Because I refuse to be an enabler. I refuse to provide them with the dopamine release that they are looking for at that moment. Second, data, milestones. Only you can gauge your progress. So look for metrics and write them down. Make them realistic, make them easily obtainable, and I prefer to go for long-term goals as opposed to heavily concentrated short-term goals. In other words, if you're going to start running, set a weight or inches loss goal week by week for a year as opposed to, say, only 3 months. This way you have 52 points of progress, right? 52 weeks in a year, 52 points of progress with ample amounts of time to accomplish. In my experience, if you set short-term goals, it can make you feel anxious or rushed or stressed. And if you miss a couple days, because of emergencies or whatnot, it can set you back much more than if you had a year-long plan. Also, I believe it takes 6 months at minimum for something to truly become a habit. And doing anything for only 3 to 4 months just isn't long enough to set the foundation for a life shift. Another piece of advice is, for the data portion, create multiple milestones or multiple data points for multiple goals. Weekly financial goals, exercise goals, diet goals, relationship goals, social goals, etc. And break your week down into percentages. If we were to divide 100% by 7 days in a week, that will equate to about 14% a day, right? So take that 14% and give yourself a weekly performance score. If you're only working out 5 days a week and not seven, those on days are worth 20% instead of 14 because 5 divided by 100%. So if you work out 5 days a week, you can give yourself a 100% participation for that week. Trust me, do it that way and your dopamine will become dependent on you writing that 100% down for each goal week after week. Another piece of advice, I encourage you, I recommend that you use the technology that you have around you. Smartphone calendar reminders, smartwatch, heart rate monitors, workout trends, right? Your bank is now able to sort your spending habits. There's information all around you that's already there. You just have to actually use it. You think I'm winging this? I don't wing anything. Everything that I do is driven by data. I log everything that I can every night. If it's not every night, it's every other night. But my progress is logged. I have Excel sheets with this kind of stuff. Why? Because I'm super busy. You think I'm going to keep track of how many times I work out or every time that I save a little bit of money or I can't keep track of all that. Use the technology around you. Use alarms, timers. It's there. Just use it. Let the technology do the thinking for you. Create micrometrics for macro success. Because when the emotions hit, and they will, when you don't think you're doing enough, and you will, look down at your progress board, your data, and remind yourself that you're doing just fine. Or that you actually do need to pick up the pace. That's all I've got for you. Carlos Ramsey's with the Enhancing Mind. Talk to you soon.